Hello, everybody. Welcome to our media session. It's good to be here virtually, and we've heard some great speakers already this morning. Richard Coe spoke about a resilient, remarkable year for business aviation. And without further ado, I'd like to turn over to Richard first to talk about UK trends, and then we have a number of operators, and I will come back and introduce them all after Richard. Richard, thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Alison. Well, look, it's been death by PowerPoint from me already this morning, so I really won't take up much time. And these friends and colleagues to follow have got really interesting stuff to say that's closer to the ground than we are. So I'm just going to reflect on a few things that we're seeing, particularly in the UK, which I didn't touch on this morning, that I think could be useful. So hopefully you can see my screen now. It should be full screen, so it should be legible. What I just wanted to capture here was through 2020 and 2021, just how much the UK appears to be struggling. So through 2020, this is month to month, year on year, business aviation departures on the left, and on the right, you've got the fuel uplift, because we're also tracking the Jet A1 being picked up. And yeah, so the UK was tracking Europe a little bit behind. For example, Europe had actually overall stronger flight activity in August last year than it did in August 2019, whereas UK, you can see here, was still stuck 6 or 7% behind. But obviously the problems have really come into play since the end of Q4, and as you see, starting into 2021, the UK is falling sort of 50, 60, 70% behind year on year. So that's obviously a direct consequence of the border restrictions, and you might interpret some Brexit impact on top of that. All the same, business aviation, partly because of the parlous state of commercial, but it is actually more resilient than commercial. BizAv is down 58%, as I mentioned, so far this year, Jan-Feb, but if you look at the black line, which is scheduled, that's down by 85%. So just as in other European countries, BizAv has been more resilient, and scheduled is not seeing much sign of recovery. And I just wanted to enlarge on this point which I made earlier, which is the black line, which you should trace against the right-hand axis, and apologies for all our axes. The right-hand axis is capturing BizAv's share of total fixed-wing activity in the UK. So, it begins with kind of less than 10% before the pandemic, and it's been oscillating between 30% and 20%, now close to 20%. So obviously BizAv is a bigger part of the mix. And we can track that at airport level as well. So this rather complicated looking slide is basically the dark red is business aviation through 20 and 21. So last 14 months, a slightly less red is scheduled over the same period. So Luton, for example, over the last 14 months, 46% decline in BizAv activity, 63% decline in scheduled. Some pretty severe dents over the last 14 months. Biggin Hill looks overall the most resilient. Looking at flight activity across the fleet, I mean, again, this year is looking pretty grim, because obviously we've seen such a big drop in Jan-Feb. But the most severe impact is in the ultra long range, but even so far in the very light jet sector, it's still 30-40% down so far this year. The King Air is, perhaps unsurprisingly, the busiest aircraft across the BizAv fleet in the UK at the moment. The UK charter market over the period, 14 months, this again has been, is still relatively the strongest sector. We think it's 29% down, which is doing better than fractional and management and private. And we're tracking, as we showed earlier, the scheduled versus BizAv from any city or any location in the airport. What we're trying to do here is see where there's erosion in scheduled or just disappearance of a connection in scheduled, and will BizAv start to fulfill some of those thin pairs. I mean, obviously most of the pairs out of London are extremely, extremely degraded in terms of activity. But there are in fact some routes which picked up even in Jan-Feb 21 versus Jan-Feb 20, and well, certainly when I circulate these, and you don't need a microscope, you'll see that Dubai, for example, has more BizAv activity this year than in 2020, and probably more than ever. That is BizAv trips from London to Dubai, and you'll be able to see the same on Manchester for some metro destinations from there as well. So just to complete, this is what we see as a BizAv forecast for 2021 for Europe. And there are kind of two numbers to keep an eye on. One is how much compared to 2020, and the other is how much compared to 2019 to sort of normality. So, compared to 2020, obviously there's going to be a rebound this year, 16% we think roughly in BizAv activity, but compared to 2019, we'll still be, in our view, 25% behind. And Northern Europe, including the UK, the way we split this up into different regions, will probably be the toughest one to come back from. So I'm going to finish there and hand back to you, Alison.
CEO of Gamma Aviation, Marie Eugene, Managing Director, FlexJet Europe, Alex Durand, CEO of Saxon Air, and Derek Thompson, COO of Air Charter Scotland. Now the brief is 3 minutes, quick fire of how the year has been for you, your highlights, and then we're going to ask you at the end for the biggest challenge your company faces, and then we're going to open it up to the Q&A. I've got a few Q&As already, but over to you, Marwin. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Good afternoon, everybody. And I do apologise. We have a technical glitch with the camera for some reason, so you won't be able to see me. I mean, confirming really what Richard has done. It's been, I don't need to tell anybody. It's been a tough year, unprecedented year. All of those kind of good words that we've grown to love over the last year. But I think the important part really is the resilience and the reaction of our industry sector as a whole to this crisis. I mean, I've been in this industry for a long time, and we've probably journeyed together on many such sort of downturns. This one is probably the toughest yet, but I'm never cease to be amazed by the way that our sector is able to kind of respond to this and sort of continue to provide services in very, very difficult circumstances, and continue to survive in very, very difficult circumstances. And for us at Gamma Aviation, it's really, I'm sure, no different to anybody else's. I think thanks to the sort of the desire, commitment, dedication of all of the great professionals that work within our industry across the field and within our company, we're able to weather these storms. I think this is not by luck. I think we've all learned from previous experiences and made our business models a lot more resilient, a lot more kind of defensive in times like this. For us, really, the fact that we rely heavily on managed aircraft, where the income streams continue to drive through, is a good thing. Where we have a lot of long-term contracts in our special mission business, and our technology and outsourcing sort of businesses continue to do well. I think we're seeing the same trends that Richard articulated. I think things flattened down at about 30%, maybe 25% in places below the pre-COVID levels, i.e. 19 across the board. And fortunately, that has flatlined around that and continues to sort of be at that level. And certainly, we're not expecting any significant change this year. We're not certainly planning on any. We're hoping for some, but we're not planning on any. And we're using the opportunity to learn more and restructure our business along the strategic business units to, put us in a better place to serve our customers and, have the right platform to move forward when, eventually things start to improve. So, my sort of reflections on it is, it started very, very uncertain. But, as always, we've all risen to the challenge, and here we are a year down the line with some brighter skies to look forward to. So that's all I will say at this stage. Thank you, Alison.
Okay, thank you, Marwin. Maureen, would you like to talk to us about FlexJet and Europe, and also welcome to the BBGA, because FlexJet is a new member.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you to all of you. Yeah, I mean, what an appropriate title, resilience and adaptability. And in the end, I'd say just at group level, if I step back a little bit from the European angle, this year has been nowhere like what we had expected, as you can imagine. But if I really give you a bit of the pulse of what's going on at the global level within our group, FlexJet and Directional, it's actually been a very successful year. SentientJet has seen record number of new card customers signing. FXA, which is basically the charter division in the US that was launched to give access to customers to the older generation aircraft of FlexJet, has been a real success and has made an impact immediately. FlexJet, really in the US, our boutique red label high-end fractional program went from an absolute sudden drop of activity in March back to pretty much full activity by year end. And likewise, I'd say in Europe, our sister company, Private Fly, has had growth year on year, which in the current context is quite remarkable, and has seen a record number of new customers. In regards to FlexJet Europe, as you can imagine, this was really not the best year to launch a new business. So it's required an incredible amount of adaptability, resilience, and salt. As you can imagine, we've been working on this plan for many years in terms of understanding the market, building the foundation, preparing the marketing, the sales. But in March, when the COVID crisis hit, it was really not the moment for us to bring forward the plan. So we postponed everything, thinking genuinely at that point, we're done for a year. We're not going to actually do anything until 2021. But we did see an opening in the summer, like many of you have commented. We saw resilience, we saw interest, we saw a little bit of traction. And so Ken Ritchie and the management team, Michael Silvestro, said, okay, let's just go forward. Let's bring a couple of Praetor 600 to Europe, and let's go kind of under the radar and start again all our plan, because there's enough resilience. And after all, we're here to build a company for the next 10, 20 years, not for the next few months. And that has been a remarkable, very exciting move, and quite bullish in the current market to do that. So I think it talks a lot about, in general, the mode and the mood of adaptation, adaptability, resilience in the company. And we've seen some real good progress and good traction with those aircraft. How's the future looking? I'd say more adaptability required from all of us, more hard work. It's clearly not started, the year hasn't started in a straight line, but we can see some real opportunity. We really believe in the choice of our fleet, the Praetor 600. We believe that there is a market niche that has, meets and needs and requirements that are not really well served right now in Europe. So we're absolutely very focused on that, and the launch of new programs to give trials like cards. We see potential. We keep going with our plan. It'll be an interesting year for sure. We've had to adapt massively, of course, in the wake of Brexit and the pandemic. We'll talk about this all together, I'm sure, through the Q&A. But it's a very exciting future, and the group is in a very, very solid place. So it gives a lot of reassurance to be working in a group that has such resilience, adaptability, and the willingness to invest for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you very much. Alex, over to you. Your views on Saxonair, how you're coping.
Thanks, Alison. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to talk to you all. Yeah, I think there's three things we took out as positives and negatives. I think there's no point dwelling on and touching on points which will come to resilience. Is we're just used to dealing with. It's a tough world to be in as an operator. However, I think there's challenges like no other. But we decided early on to just engage with what we could do, and I think the primary thing is just to reset the business. You just cannot stop in business. It's impossible, but we had the opportunity. So early in the first lockdown, we went really hard at doing everything we could possibly do to set the business up for the future. And that's really energized us, really set us up, and really worked out our purpose, who we are, what we want to be. And we are looking to come out of this as a different, more engaged, more focused business than we were. So, well, I wouldn't want to go through it again. I think by taking that approach, it has enabled us to come out better and engage and attack the problem. And I think related to that, a new interest in the sector, which has got some great stats, and I think all our experiences, there is new interest. We saw that in the early days of the pandemic, you could not market our service better than what happened when everyone got stuck. We were the only option, and suddenly our sector, overnight, I think from really hard to explain and justify, a lot of people got it. Harness the positivity. I'll touch on that later, but we are connecting people. So, and I think people are understanding that. So we need to jump on that. And again, this is a chance to reset as a sector, not just as Saxonair. And I think it's been said, but you cannot overstate. The word resilience has become overused, but it's like nothing else. We have had to deal with all the problems other businesses have, and then we've had Brexit. So while here we all are though, and we've come through it, and I've said a few times recently, because we had prior to this probably a really difficult lead-in because of charter dwindling leading up to Brexit. So 2019 we saw quite a reduction as people were waiting to see whether no deal happened. So we have had problems for a long time, and you just think, if life is easy, what can we do now? If we can get through this, so the future is really bright, because we believe, if we have the skill set and the resilience and the support, it's made us understand each other. And again, both sides, I think as a sector, we've all come together a lot more. So I think overall, I wouldn't wish it happening again, but I think we're coming out better for it. And that's our take on it.
Also what we think in the next 12 months and where we are. So last year at the start was a very vanilla Q1 for us, and then into Q2 obviously saw the massive impact on our business, where we saw an 83% drop in revenues, which coincided with the lockdown. Also, we did a forced grounding of our own fleet for up to 6 weeks, because we wanted to develop some robust COVID strategies to look after our staff, and also to look after our clients on board as best we possibly could. Q3 for us, we saw a good upturn in fortunes, although it was still 10% down year on year from 2019 in Q3. I put a lot of that down to new entrants into the market, which is obviously great, not only for us, but also for private aviation in general, and very important we can try and keep those people in the industry. And then Q4, the second major lockdown for the UK, we saw a 27% drop in revenue. So overall for the year in 2020, we were 31% down on the previous year, which probably ties in quite well with Richard's statistics as well. So what did we do in the last year that we didn't normally do? Well, we Obviously, faced with the prospect of the UK's exit from the EU, we set up a Maltese AOC to cover this side from a business continuity perspective. There was no real lead into where these talks and discussions were going with politicians, so we knew we had to act before a decision was made, and ultimately a decision was made on the 24th of December, which for UK operators in private aviation, it wasn't the best deal, I think is fair to say. Then after that, we've also been rebranding the organisation. We've got a new look and feel to the company, a new website. We've recently added 4 new aircraft to the fleet, with another 2 aircraft to join very, very shortly. So we're trying to be as positive and as proactive as we possibly can. Clearly, there are some challenges ahead for the next year. I think 2020 can purely and squarely be put down to COVID, where 2021 is going to now, for UK operators at least, going to be a mixture of COVID and Brexit, with those challenges. But we have to, obviously have to face this, hoping that it will get better for us all. But from our side, obviously, we had to take that step with the European EOC, which was just to make sure that we can be as resilient as we possibly can. But it has been a very difficult climate to operate in over the last 12 months. Probably the next 12 months will be somewhat difficult as well. Not expecting much of an upturn, really, but expecting to turn to normal 2018, 2019 levels, maybe by 2022. That's really it from my side.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I've got a couple of questions. I have one to start off with, and I'd like to ask you all, when is corporate aviation coming back? We've seen some business aviation traffic coming on the leisure side in between the lockdowns, but when do you all expect business travellers will return? Who wants to go first?
Well, I will, if you like. I think it will come sooner than we think. Perhaps towards the back end of the summer. I think the traditional leisure time, I think coming into the autumn, I think by that time the business will be gearing up to reconnect. And just one of the business traffic is a very generic term. With a lot of business traffic already, there is group traffic or contractors. It's more than just execs and high net worths. So I think our sector will, people will need to go and build projects together. They will need to visit them. So I think probably when there's I think across Europe, particularly, I think some recovery. I think going into the autumn, we'll be able to really target that.
Anybody else want to add to that?
I think I'd just say that it will return. I don't know when, but the idea that key decision makers, CEOs, and the leading layer of all those Fortune 1000 company would conduct business on Zoom is ludicrous. It will not happen. They will return. And given the challenges of what happened with the commercial aviation connection, the schedule, the availability of offer out there, the health concern, there will be no better way for that leading C-suite and the executive to fly and resume their work and their duty than flying private. And I think that is why, despite the crisis and despite what the difficulties we've all experienced, there is still a general sense of hopeful light at the end of the tunnel, and a sense that this industry is actually on the eve of potentially a real growth opportunity.
Excellent. I've got a question here from Ben Sampson at Business Airport International. He says, is there a silver lining to Brexit for BizAv in the UK longer term? And if there is, what is it? Marwin, do you want to answer that one?
Is there a silver lining to Brexit? I wish I knew is the honest answer. I think it's uncharted territory. I think, there's a lot of unknowns, and we'll see what needs to happen. But I think, like everything else that's been said before, you know, as has been the way we've done things, whether it's an economic crisis, a health crisis, or Brexit, we will find a way, and we will, you know, we will get some positives from it, and we will adapt to it, and you know, it'll, you know, it will become part of normal life, and you know, there's a lot of work that, you know, associations are doing to support us as UK operators, which we're obviously appreciative of and grateful for, and you know, thanks go to Lindsay and Mark and others in that respect. But you know, there's a lot, you know, we're caught in the crossfire of a lot of politics, a lot of kind of wheeling and dealing that's happening at government level, and we just have to see how it pans out.
Anybody wants to add to that?
Yeah, I think we will, but not in the short term. I think we're going to have a very tough year adapting and evolving, but I think once we find our feet, I think we'll understand the opportunities, and we already get a sense that we work out what we can do because of the flexibility and freedom we have. Whereas at the moment, we're just trying to untangle years of a certain way of interacting and operating. So yeah, I instinctively find it hard to look for silver linings, but actually I think if you do, they will come.
Yeah. I've got a question from Chloe Greenback on smaller regional airports. Many are integral to business aviation connectivity, as you know, and they're facing the reality of not being able to stay open or operational. How will this impact on the business aviation community, and what needs to be done to prevent possible airport closure?
Yeah, I mean, the network of small airports is very important to the health of our industry, for sure. I mean, what needs to be done? I think that's a collective answer that we have to give as a community and through the great work that you're all doing here. But that's the key principle of flying private, is to avoid big commercial hubs. So if we see on the back of what happened, the closure of small regional airports, it could be a real issue for sure. It's not a good thing. And beyond even, of course, the dramatic impact on people's life and job.
And I think we naturally need to actually promote them. We're always apologising for ourselves for noise, environment, whatever it is, but regional airports are a lifeline. They are a port of entry. They create wealth for the region. That needs to be promoted by governments, you know, as a concept, because it just seems to be they're seen as a nuisance. But when they're gone, they don't come back, and communities dwindle and suffer. You know, if we want people to come and visit us and spend money with us, we need airports, regionals, and smaller airports are critical to that. We need smaller airports for the training industry that's a lifeblood. So we need, again, as an industry, need to really promote it.
Question from Liz Moscott, which I'm just going to abbreviate. What do we need to do? I mean, we've obviously had a great opportunity to promote business aviation and the perception, but is there anything that we really need to drive the message to move the needle, that it's not just for the elite?
I mean, I could stick on there, Alison, to say that, you know, in the last 6 to 8 months, you know, you've seen a lot of very new entrants into the market of people travelling in business aviation that maybe didn't travel in business aviation before. I think that, yes, that message now needs to be, we need to try and keep those people, first of all, in the industry, flying on all the aircraft in private aviation. You know, hopefully it's given people a taste. We've got to let people see that, you know, that it's not for the elite always for these type of missions. Some of them are very critical, you know, and that's, again, it feeds into where the regional connectivity comes into play as well. You know, it's, if you look to places like the US, obviously, you know, aviation is absolutely wide open compared to the UK, where there's not been massive amounts of support towards these type of places. So yeah, it all feeds into the same. You know, we need to promote these services by airports, by providers, by suppliers, by new entrants to the market. It's definitely not for the elite, though. It's only for the elite, that's for sure.
Excellent. And another question. We talked about business aviation being something that can you know, a sector that can step in when regional services have stopped, services have cut back. What does you all think about corporate
personally, I think there will be probably more need for the tailored, bespoke kind of offering, which people will want to do. I mean, I think corporates, it'll be a while before the sort of large numbers of executives within corporates are going on regular routes on regular days, because, to be honest, I mean, I totally subscribe to the view that Zoom and Teams and others have played a great role, and I think they've taught us all that we can do things slightly differently, and they will probably reduce slightly the demand for travel, but there's no substitute for the face-to-face meetings, and but those have to be tailored. I mean, it's for me, that's the main benefit of a business aviation, is the flexibility and the tailoring, rather than the kind of scheduled service on shuttle routes.
Excellent. I'm aware of the time. Sorry, did you want to add on to that?
I was just going to very quickly add that actually I think there is a place, because I think people they won't understand what isn't available with the airlines. If you're talking about an 85% drop or whatever we saw, that's not going to come back in a hurry. And people will need to travel. We come from a very service industry perspective. People need to go and build them. They need to go and connect. They need to send groups of people. You will not be able to do it how you could. And I think as we come out, I think there is opportunity to put that into the offer.
Yeah. I'm conscious of the time. There are a number of questions, but I'd like to invite all the speakers to come to the Emerald booth, take a seat, and all the journalists who've asked questions, come and chat to the speakers, contact them on the direct message, and we can pick up on that. But Lindsay, you need to get back to the sessions. Thank you all very much, and good luck for the future.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you.